let's talk about the ventricles. The ventricles in the brain are spaces that house cerebrospinal fluid, and they also produce it. Now, that cerebrospinal fluid is a special type of fluid that helps cushion the brain, and it also helps transport nutrients around the brain and spinal cord. Now, the cerebrospinal fluid system is a closed system, and it interacts with all of the nervous system, brain and spinal cord included. So it's both inside and around where it acts as a cushion. So if we look at this model, it's kind of weird looking. This represents a 3D view of what the spaces within the brain would actually look like. So basically, you inject something into the brain, you take the tissue away, and this is what the spaces inside look like. So within the brain, we have 4 ventricles, 2 lateral ventricles, a left lateral and a right lateral ventricle. It kind of looks C-shaped. These are inside the cerebrum, and they are so big because they're supplying the entire cerebrum. So if we look at an anatomical model, so what you're seeing here, so here's our corpus callosum, our fornix, our septum pellucidum would be here where the hole is, and if we punch past and into the hole, we're looking at the lateral ventricle inside. Now what you notice here in blue represents something called the choroid plexus. And the choroid plexus is full of little cells called ependymal cells, and they're producing the CSF. They're also tethered to a capillary bed, so they often look purple in the models. So the lateral ventricles, left and right, are supplying the cerebral hemispheres. In the diencephalon, separating the left and right thalamus from each other, we have an area called the third ventricle. And if you make this mid-sagittal cut, like you see in the models here, that mid-sagittal cut cuts directly through the third ventricle. So here's the thalamus on one side, the third ventricle would live here. And you can see part of the choroid plexus here in this kind of purpley structure. That's lining the roof of the third ventricle. Now the third ventricle communicates with the fourth ventricle, which lies in between the cerebellum and the pons. It's kind of a little triangular, little opening area. On this model, it looks a little bit more disorganized, not so triangular. And the third ventricle is connected to the fourth ventricle by a little channel called the cerebral aqueduct. That connects fourth ventricle to third ventricle. So here's your cerebral aqueduct. It runs through the midbrain. Here's fourth, and it continues on as the central canal of the spinal cord.